This is the first time I've had my parents come to a premiere, and it's been a lot. It's been a lot for me, for them, and for a lot of people, Black cowboys across the country.
Welcome to Story and Craft. Now, here's your host, Mark Preston.
Hey, welcome back to Story and Craft. I'm Mark Preston. If this is your first time, welcome. Thank you very much for just checking it out, being a part of the show here today. You're really going to like this conversation. LaMonica Garrett. I've been keeping an eye on him for a while, really enjoy his work. I think what he did in the Paramount Plus show, 1883, he played Thomas. He just knocked it out of the park. He is truly a talented actor. The dynamic with him, alongside Sam Elliott, TV magic right there. He's been in a lot of other stuff. I mean, he's been in Sons of Anarchy, Designated Survivor, The Last Ship. And my son even reminded me he was in the DC Universe as the Monitor and Anti-Monitor. Now, on the big screen, Transformers, Dark of the Moon, he's done that. The Netflix movie XOXO, Daddy's Home, and more. And coming up July 1st, he's going to be in the Amazon Prime show, The Terminal List. He's co-starring with Chris Pratt, and this is going to be a great show. Now, don't forget, Story and Craft Pod. It's where everything is. You want to send me a message, sign up for the newsletter, follow me on social media, pretty much anything you ever could possibly want to know about this show and listen to the show itself is at storyandcraftpod.com. And again, thank you so much for checking out the show. Do me a favor and subscribe if you would. Leave a review, give 5 stars, 10 stars, whatever the maximum amount of stars you can give. If you love the show, please do so. Definitely appreciate you being a part of it. Okay, let's get after it. It's LaMonica Garrett Day right here on Story and Craft. So, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm pretty good. The weather's kind of nice. The heat kind of subsided a little bit. We got a little rain.
Now, where are you located? Are you on the? You're in L.A.?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I see you're a West Coast guy from the get-go. You're from San Francisco, right?
Oh yeah, Cali kid.
It's so funny. I was, my son and I always watch Designated Survivor. And I know Reed Diamond, I was like, oh, I'm going to make a note, let you know. It's like, oh, what's it like working with Reed? Literally that same moment, I get an email from him. I'm like, dude, the universe, man, it's it's ponderous. And I will read you his email. He says, LaMonica is one of my most favorite people on the planet. Please give him my love. So I'm giving you his love.
That's awesome. Yeah, Reed, that was my partner. We had such a good time out in Toronto working. He's awesome.
Is that where y'all shot Designated Survivor in Toronto?
Yeah.
We'll definitely get to 1883, without a doubt. That's another show. My son and I, he was jazzed that I was talking to you today because we watched Designated Survivor, both incarnations, when it was, I think, on ABC, then on Netflix, and 1883, which is just on point. What a great show. But what have you been up to since then, since that's wrapped up?
Since I got back, I worked on a short film. It'll hit the film circuit like the like Sundances and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how that goes. And just doing PR for Terminal List. I told my reps that I want to chill out for a little bit. I want to take some time off. Right from Terminal List, we shot that. A few days later, I'm in Texas, and I was there for 6 months straight. Didn't really get home.
Oh, so you all shot that before 1883?
Yeah, we shot that beforehand, and it was when I found out I got 1883, it was like 3 days. Hey, they need you in Texas, so I didn't have time to do anything.
When is Terminal List set to come out?
July 1st.
July 1st. Okay, yeah. So that's you, Chris Pratt. It's a military-based show, and if I read the premise correct, it's basically him reminiscing or thinking back to some events or event that happened when he was in the military. And is that kind of where you fall into the cast there? You were part of his unit or whatever?
Yeah, I was part of the unit at home. I'm pretty much his commanding officer, like a mentor to him. And he went out on a mission, and his team got ambushed. So he's trying to put the pieces together, and that's where we pick up from in episode 1.
Well, that's very cool. Yeah, definitely going to chat about that in a moment. But 1883, man, what a really well-executed show. I mean, I have so many questions. The first one is, I was literally just having lunch with my son. I was like, you know what, I'm going to tell you, you need to make there needs to be a prequel to the prequel of the genesis of the relationship with you and Sam Elliott. I need to know more about that. It was almost like there's this whole unspoken relationship between the two of y'all, and or there's a lot of stuff that didn't come up. Did Taylor Sheridan, did he sit down and say, okay, here's the backstory between the two of y'all, though it may not come up on screen, or did y'all just sit down and kind of hash out what your relationship was going to be about?
Taylor came up to us individually, and he told me pretty much what Thomas was and, where he came from and what his story was. He told me a lot of that during the casting process, during my last audition to get the job. And when I got to Texas, he filled me in a little bit more. And me and Sam, as soon as we met, we hit it off. But me and Sam never really had a sit down about Thomas and Shay and where they came from. Taylor's writing is real in depth and real. It's all on the page. So if we stick the landing on our side, it would sing. And
yeah, one of the things I loved about the show was that it wasn't trying to say, oh, the Old West was so hard and trying to, or it didn't overly romanticize it. It was right down the middle. It was just kind of as close to this is what it was, And I thought it was just, again, really well executed. And I heard an interview with Sam Elliott talking about how, in terms of wardrobe, how important the hat is. And he said that he was going to wear a hat that it's got to fit. It's an extension of you or something. But apparently, the hat they got him didn't fit quite right. So but he was locked in having to wear it every thing. How did your hat fit? Were you happy with it?
I mean, my hat was more of it was part of his soldier hat. It was part of his Buffalo Soldier, the jacket. So I was good with it. But cowboys in general, I learned that when I was down in Texas. The hat is very important, and it starts with the hat, and then you start dressing down from that. And I had no idea of hat etiquette, but I know now.
Well, a couple questions. They're both based on your appearance. Was that your choice? Did you say, okay, this is how I feel I would have looked back then, or was this, again, more of a production decision?
It was more of we're on the trail. Like you're on this Oregon Trail. It started off with kind of thin cut, mustache was a little lower. It was more groomed in the beginning. And as you go, you don't have barbers with you that you travel with. It's not like we're going to go to a salon somewhere and get taken care of. So it's just gradually over that time period on the Oregon Trail, your hair just grows. And I think that was part of the authenticity of it.
Yeah, again, there was a lot, in my mind, it was one of the more honest or more authentic depictions of what I imagine the Old West was like. Having grown up in Texas, it's just sort of like, it's just in the ethos. Where did y'all shoot, by the way, in Texas?
We shot in a handful of places in Texas. We shot in Fort Worth. We shot in Weatherford. We shot in Mineral Wells, Dixon, Guthrie. Yeah, we traveled. Yeah.
Y'all were really keeping it true to the story then. A good friend of mine back in Dallas named Chris, he first got me turned on to Yellowstone. I really didn't have a chance to get into Yellowstone yet, but I started with 1883, really. He was watching it roughly the same time. I said, man, they're tracking right west of Fort Worth, heading towards the Red River. Y'all were pretty much shooting ballpark where it was technically set, and it almost never happens, it seems like,
Yeah, we were going from ranch to ranch, and we ended up in Montana. We shot in a few different locations in Montana. We ultimately ended up in Oregon. So yeah, the train was on the rise, and we kept going.
You kept your uniform the entire time. Was there a story behind that, or a decision that? I'm just kind of curious because you're the only one that didn't change wardrobe throughout the whole series.
I think for me and Taylor talked about it, it was a sense of pride that was really the first thing that Thomas had that was his. And he had a sense of pride about being a Buffalo Soldier, coming from where he came from, and especially in that point in history for a black cowboy. So that's his badge. Yeah, that was just his, he had so much honor and pride in wearing that jacket, that Buffalo Soldier, being a part of that unit, that's pretty much who he is.
What was the backstory? Did you come up with, like, where did Taylor Sheridan say this is where he's from?
He was from Mississippi. He was born on a plantation down in Mississippi, and when he was around 11, 12 years old, he walked into the plantation house, and the slave owner was passed away from natural causes. So Thomas just gets on a horse and he rides off and he figures out life, and he ultimately ends up, in the Union, fighting alongside Buffalo Soldiers, and that's where he met Shay, and that's where their story picked up.
The kind of the way it's portrayed, or there was, you're his right-hand man or whatever. But for me, it was just a straight-up friendship. There wasn't any right or left.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the show is worth watching just for you and Sam Elliott, just the interactions and just the, you are the wisdom that sometime for him. And it seems like a guy like Sam Elliott's the guy technically offering the wisdom. But just a little bit more on 1883 is Tim McGraw. I haven't seen him act for years, all the way back to Friday Night Lights and whatever have you. It was so good to see him in a lead, it was so, and he, of course, acting with your wife. I mean, have you ever seen maybe look like they're in an argument or like, okay, is that real deal? Or are they just really method getting ready for a scene,
Yeah.
Did he kind of encourage you to, were you a country music fan to begin with? Or, I'd seen on Instagram you'd kind of showed up to a concert or two of his.
Yeah, I've listened to some country music. I haven't really gotten depth with it until I was on this cast and down in Texas, and you're just surrounded by it. But if you're going to be introduced to country music on a wide scale, Tim McGraw and Faith are the ones you want to usher you into that, and it was amazing.
Yeah, he's kind of sitting on the Mount Rushmore of kind of those guys in country. He can get away with wearing a leather vest and no shirt on stage. I'm like, you know what? He's making all of us guys of a certain age look bad. I mean, I'm like, but I know physical fitness is like a real big thing for you. So they have a little like mobile gym set up for you on the set while y'all were shooting.
Yeah, Taylor had something set up. He had a gym at the ranch we were staying at first, and they put together a mobile gym for us when we started going on the road. And when we got around November, late October, early November, I think it was, Tim had his personalized trailer gym meet us where we were at. And his gym, like this huge, it's like you're in a real gym somewhere with walls and, two 70-inch screen TVs, a sauna, cold plunge, all the weights you can imagine. So every morning beforehand, me and Tim would be in there, and sometimes Taylor, when he was in town, we'd all be in there getting after it like at 4 a.m. before we start work at like 5:30.
It's funny. I talked to Billy Bob Thornton just a few weeks. I lose track of time. A few weeks back, and I was curious when he shows up on set. Here's a guy who was in Tombstone, The Alamo, or like, he's a guy who's kind of like a Western royalty technically now. Because he's been in Tombstone. When Billy Bob Thornton shows up on set, what was that day like?
It was real. It was nice. He's real gracious with his time. He was taking pictures. All of us, we're fans before we are actors. And I've been a fan of Billy Bob forever. And we had like 400 background players when we were in Fort Worth. And a lot of them were coming up to Billy, and he was talking to everybody. He was real, just personable, and we were working late. We were working all night, a couple nights. No one's complaining. Everyone's just happy to be there, knowing the magnitude of the project. You're just looking around at the people involved in this. We all knew it was going to be something special. So it was,
I didn't know what to think of it. I just knew it was a prequel. Honestly, when I found Sam Elliott's in it, he's one of those guys that drink his Kool-Aid. Whatever he's in, I'm going to check him out. I'll get back to Big Lebowski and before. He just always brings something to the show. And I didn't know much about Isabel May beforehand, but man, what a little force of nature, man. It was the fact that she was kind of carrying the narrative in a way. I can't imagine the show being the same if any one of the characters wasn't there, and yours was just like, you're always level and even. It's very rare I watch a show and go, damn, that was damn good. I wish there's some more of that, but it's obviously, it's kind of self-contained. You really can't have a sequel to that, I guess.
Leave on a high note, I guess.
Curious about origin story on you. I know you're from San Francisco, but was acting always on the radar for you, or was this something that just you kind of evolved into?
I played football. That was my first passion. And I always knew that I wanted to do something in entertainment. I couldn't sing. I rapped a little bit, but, I didn't know where that was going to go. I was a dancer, breakdancing back in, San Francisco in the 80s.
Oh, so you were one of those guys walking around with a big old thing of cardboard that you fold up?
And cardboard everywhere. We were looking for the local wrecks. We were looking for battles. We had a crew. Cardboard was that was your staple when you're back spinning and you're windmilling.
Yeah, I don't think my kids would understand a tape deck boom box and cardboard was a source of It
Oh
was a
man,
thing back in the day.
those were the glory days. Yeah.
So were you growing up as an only child, or did you have any brothers or sisters coming up?
I was a middle child. I had an older brother, younger sister, so I had a lot of me time. I was a latchkey kid. It was like come and go. It was a different time back then.
Kind of hard to explain to kids stuff we got away with. I can't imagine. I got a 19, a 17, and a 16-year-old, and I cannot imagine. I didn't get myself into trouble, but man, I'd be like, okay, lights come on. All right, it's time to go home.
It's time to go home. Yeah, you could be gone all day, but when those lights come on, it's time to get back to the house. And that was the unwritten rule, or it was the rule, but we all knew that rule.
As long as I was cool making my own dinner, I could stay out even later. I'm like, that's easy, I could whip together a sandwich.
Yeah.
So you started off, you were in San Francisco, you're breakdancing, but you were an athlete through high school also, correct?
Yeah, and it was like, my dream was to get in the NFL. I got pretty close, but I didn't make it. And it was one of those things where it was like that fork in the road. All right, what do you do now? Because I gave football my everything.
Where were you playing?
And in the back of my head, in Central State in Ohio, small school in Wilberforce, Ohio, right outside Columbus. And right when that was over, when I realized it wasn't going to happen for me, it was like, all right, well, move to LA and try to figure that out. Like that. And with acting, there's no structure. There's no, go to school this many years, and then you got to do an internship here, and there's no rhyme or reason. You just go out there and try to make it happen. And that's what I did.
Yeah, so you went from one job or one potential vocation or aspiration that has the odds are just stacked against anybody who wants to do it, just the numbers one. And you got into another gig that the odds are stacked against you, but you thrived.
I'm a glutton for punishment. Yeah.
So what kind of gig were your folks involved in?
They were both in the medical field. They were both my mom was a nurse. She was a at-home nurse, and she worked in the hospital a little bit. My dad he was a medic in Vietnam, and he came back and he picked up where he left off when he got back. So my mom had two jobs. My dad had a job, but it took a lot of his time. So, you see him when you see him.
Yeah, so you were really carving out your own space back in the day.
Yeah.
I guess kind of we all were, those latchkey kids, that whole thing. So there were no thespians in your family going, acting, it's a thing, So
no.
How did they feel when you said, this acting thing, I've been doing the football thing, now I want to do this thing? What was the reaction that you got? I
had the most support from my family. They left Mississippi. The way they grew up in the 60s out in, that civil rights kind of that era, they wanted us to have a different shot at life. So they sacrificed, they left everything they knew and moved to San Francisco. We didn't have any really friends or family when, we made some, but summers we would drive back to Mississippi, so I would spend time with my family.
Whereabouts in Mississippi are your folks from?
In Canton, Jackson, and Lexington.
Big difference between Canton, Mississippi, and San Francisco. It is a vast cultural, sociological, every other way of looking at it. You can still get good food though, so that's kind of a nice thing about Mississippi. But but you still have your roots, some extended family down there, right?
Yeah, everybody's still down there. They're in Chicago, and my family, whatever I decided to do, they wanted me to be better than what they were. And that's every parent's goal, is for the next generation to have more opportunities and just have a better life. And they did that. So it was like, I owe it to them. That's why whenever I talk about my parents, my mom, when I'm doing these interviews, I get choked up a little bit because I know how much they sacrificed for me to just live a dream. And that's all I'm doing right now, is living a dream, taking chances.
Well, playing, being in 1883 and playing who you were playing, I mean, that had to really resonate at some level. I mean, that had to be a special thing for you to get cast in. When you're going through the audition process, I mean, that had to have been bouncing around your brain, what this would mean if you got this and who you'd be playing and what that would inject into the overall story of the West and the Oregon Trail and stuff. I mean, what were your folks saying to you about that when you landed the role, a Buffalo Soldier? What was kind of their feedback?
They knew the significance of it, and I put a lot of weight on myself because I know the genre and I know the lack of representation that's been there over the years. And my mom's a huge Western fan. She's an aficionado of all things Western, if you ask her. So she knows that there weren't a lot of black cowboys growing up, especially on the television side. So when I told her I got this role, she was just so excited. And, I really don't tell them much until it's about to air. whether it's a film or whether it's on TV. But my mom, I walked her through the whole process of everything that was going on. And this is the first time I've had my parents come to a premiere that I was doing. And, it meant a lot. It meant a lot for me, for them, and for a lot of people, Black cowboys across the country, present day Black cowboys.
That's the reason why when I saw you wore the uniform the entire time. But I gleaned that it was a sense of pride that kept the uniform on the entire time. And pride in what, because you'd seen some, character had seen some things,
That's the first thing he had that was his and that he earned and that he could be proud of. Everything else in his life is, who knows what he did from the age 12 on before he got there. And even being a slave, living on a plantation, nothing is yours. You don't have the sense of pride you have when someone gives you a gun, someone gives you a horse, even though it's an old beat down horse and it's probably a secondhand gun, and someone gives you a uniform and you have a territory to protect. They're entrusting you to do a job, and he's never had that before. And it's significant.
Yeah, and like I said, the relationship with you and Sam Elliott, again, his character, looking, sounding, the presence, everything about Sam Elliott, but yet you come and provide him some wisdom. One of my favorite scenes in the whole thing is you just walk up. There's this, if I could hang a phrase, it'd just be pure unadulterated common sense. You walk up to him, he's sitting there, he's got his gun, he's like, all right, do I need to dig a hole? Because you're like thinking, okay, what time is it? I got to get some stuff done. Do I need to dig a hole also? I was like, this is some real deal stuff here. This is not, again, trying to say the West is a really hard place. It was just like, it was what it was.
It was matter-of-factly. Yeah, and it set the tone for who they are and who they are as people together. And that opening scene, when we read it, Sam said the same thing, was like, wow. Like, that's impactful. Like, who these guys are right out the gate.
I could just spend the whole time talking to 1883, and there's some people maybe listening who haven't seen it yet. They need to. But your body of work, man, I was just talking to my son in the car when we picked up lunch, and I saw you'd done the superhero thing. I didn't know about that. My son's like, yeah, he played, I forgot the character he said you played, but it was, I see
the Monitor.
Monitor,
yeah. And the Anti-Monitor. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's got to be kind of wild, because, to say from that to 1883, that's some range right there, man.
I jump around a little bit.
Now, where did they shoot The Last Ship? That was I enjoyed that show. The premise and concept of it was pretty cool. Where was that made?
That was Clover Studios. And we went down to San Diego. We actually filmed on it at the naval base on one of the carriers a couple times. And that was amazing. And then before Terminalist, that was the last job I had in Los Angeles. Like, everything since then has been in different states, different countries.
It's funny. I had a friend in the Coast Guard. I would sometimes drive them down to their ship, which departed out of the home of the U.S. Pacific Surface Fleet or whatever. And you don't realize how big these ships are unless you're driving right next to them in a car. It's like, holy crap, these things are enormous.
Massive, yeah.
That was such a great show. It was just kind of cool.
I love working with those guys. Yeah, that was such a fun role and such a fun experience being like it was a locker room environment, and it was just. It was great.
I was about to say, it seems like there was a lot of testosterone on that set.
Yeah, I was a former football player, so I invited that a little bit. But we were shooting at the base, and we were all in our fatigues and everything, and I was lieutenant. So when you're walking to set, it was an active base, so people were stopping what they're doing to salute. You're like, no, we're just active. Like, they couldn't tell the difference. I felt guilty. I'm like, you guys earned it. You guys are the heroes. We're just playing make believe, but. Yeah, that was a different experience.
You segued out of that into, or were you doing that concurrently with Designated Survivor at the same time?
I got designated right after the first season I did with Last Ship, and then that took me to Toronto, and then I came back to kind of give my character an outro. You know what I mean? So we just something where my character he just disappeared. So they wrote something in to say what happened to him.
Going into Designated Survivor, that's kind of another one of those what-if shows. And there it's kind of funny that it's sort of the same thing you did with Sam Elliott. You're kind of there to provide a little wisdom. It seems like a common theme that starts showing up. People look to you for a little bit of insight, Yeah,
I guess. Terminalist on the opposite. But, well, not really. I a lot of insight in that too. But I guess that's what I project. A better got to call my agent up and see what else, how we could expand on this.
Take over for that whole Morgan Freeman God thing, it's like it's now time to pass the baton, Reed Diamond just knocked it out of the park there as well. So it's cool that y'all, connected. Y'all both, what I love about Reed, the same thing with you, is I have a great admiration for what I call just great working actors. They show up, no matter what they're doing, they knock it out of the park, and I really, that's one thing I've always admired about what you do.
Thank you.
Now, moving, kind of hit and rewind a little bit, when you were, football, you kind of closed that chapter, you're in LA. What was that progression that got you in? Where you're taking some classes, you're kind of doing the same, getting your headshots, doing the auditions. How did that progress to, was it pretty quick for you, or was it kind of a slow roll?
It was a slow burn. My roommate at the time, he needed a ride. His car broke down, and it was a commercial audition. It was a pretty big commercial. Joe Pitka directing. It was for IBM. It was at like 10 spots. And I didn't have an agent. I didn't have anything. I was working at FedEx at the time. I take him to this park, and I see a bunch of basketball players. And I'm like, I can do that. You think they would let me audition? He's like, yeah, give him a try, And I got that job. And with that job, helped me to get in the class. The money was good. That was the first job I ever had. It helped me get my SAG credentials and all that stuff. And I thought it was going to be easy. Like, why isn't everyone doing this? And then years, I didn't book any other commercials, but that's what that was. So, but I stayed in class. And then I started playing this sport called Slamball. And Slamball took me to different countries, different states. And ultimately, there was a One Tree Hill 3-episode arc where James Lafferty and Joe Manganiello were the leads, and they were Slamball players. So they needed a real Slamball player to go against them in this 3-episode arc. And I was telling the guys, like, hey, I've been in acting classes for years. I can do this. And I got the part, and that was my first real TV credit. And when I got back home from there, it was one of those things where I quit Slamball. I quit everything I was doing, just acting classes. And, like, that high I got from being on set.
How long had you done Slamball up to that time?
Like 6 years, 7 years.
I know it was with trampolines, a little bit smaller ball, and it's basketball leveled up a little bit. But is it a big televised sport back in the day?
It was. It was on CBS. It was on TNT, TNN. They did some stuff on ESPN. We were in Italy. Right now, they're big in China. We were in Atlanta for Final Four. Like we got around. And it was like, watching a live video game. So it was still fun to me. And I still had that energy of, wanting to play football. So that was like an outlet for me.
So really your athleticism is what got you indirectly in acting.
Yeah.
That's
pretty much.
So there was a direct kind of a link there. So now you're on One Tree Hill, and were you just progressing on TV from there? Or you, I guess, hey, everybody, you're auditioning for everything, I'm sure.
Yeah. 1 line here, 2 lines on Eastwick. 3 lines on Hawthorne, just, getting to know casting directors and really starting from the bottom, just figuring it out, having bad auditions, like, okay, that doesn't work. Let me try it this way, meeting with different acting coaches, trying to figure out my voice, who I am as an actor, what I bring to the table. And it just takes years to figure that kind of stuff out. And once you start putting it all together, you're like, I can do this. And that's, it was gradual, but it happened.
Yeah, with age comes that confidence. Plus, you know yourself better, and it's that thing, that classic idea of if you knew then what you know now kind of a thing. It's like, if I could start over again, man, I'd be a lot more efficient, with what I did or what I would be doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Of course, you managed to land like on multiple series where you multiple episodes. You roll everything you've done up and go, okay, I've done this. What is something you'd like to put in a bucket list of what you would like to do, either actors you would like to work with, director, a kind of project that you would like to kind of scoot into, be it a movie or TV show?
My next goal is to lead something, to lead like an action project, whether it's television or film, like a Jason Bourne kind of thing, or like if we go back to comic books, like a Green Lantern, Jon Stewart kind of thing. But to be a lead and to carry the load, I've been, the guy that I'm there, and I'm like you said, there's wisdom and you have a strong presence and you're there and you're holding your own, but I haven't led that ship yet. And I think whether it's television or film, I love action and I love sci-fi. So to be a lead in one of those genres, we'll see where it goes.
Well, sci-fi. What were you growing up with? What was your go-to movies as a kid? 80s, 90s. What were you like all about back in the day?
The Return of the Jedi was the first film I went and saw without my parents at Tanforan Theater in San Francisco. I grew up Quantum Leap, The Greatest American Hero, Knight Rider. Like 80s TV to me was the best TV ever, and that's why it's being remade. Yeah, 80s television to me was just it was all there. Alf.
Oh, and what was it like being on Fantasy Island then? You were on an episode of the new Fantasy Island. Was that kind of like...
That was a flashback.
Yeah, my daughter's into that show, and I was trying to tell her that back in the day, man, that was like Saturday night. Got Love Boat and Fantasy Island. That was the jam.
We didn't have a lot of options, and that was it. Like, this is what you're watching tonight.
They actually did kind of a cool spin on that show. It shoots in Puerto Rico, is that correct? Or
yeah. And that's what I was filming, actually, when I got the call that I got in 1883. So I got the call when I was out on the beach in Puerto Rico, like rain coming down. I'm drinking a Mai Tai. And like, yeah, so as soon as you get back home, you have to be in Texas in 3 days. Like, wow, okay. Yeah, let me get back home. Let me pack. And I thought I was going to Texas just for, cowboy camp, and I'd be flying back and forth for work. I didn't know when I got there, I wasn't going to come home again for 5 months. Like, I grossly underprepared. You
said cowboy camp? They put you all through kind of schooling you up on how to be
cowboys, yeah.
What are some of the notes they hit on? Like how to ride a horse, I'm supposed.
Yeah, riding a horse. If you're nervous, the horse is nervous. Heels down. You got to look to see where you're going. Don't look at the horse's head. That's pretty common. Steering cattle, riding wagons. Just the whole everything you can imagine. Like, we had to herd one group of cows from one side of the ranch to the other, and that was like 9-10 miles. We did it. Like, we figured it out, and it was all of us together, so it was a bonding process as well, and that's how we all came together, and we seemed so close when we started filming. We went right into filming from cowboy camp.
Well, I got to ask, because I'm a native Texan, where was your favorite barbecue joint when you were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
We were kind of in a bubble because of COVID. So we kind of stayed on Taylor's Ranch.
Oh, true.
Yeah, but we had great barbecue at the ranch. We stayed at the Steiner Ranch. The Steiners are one of the biggest steakhouses in the country. So we were getting the best meat you could imagine. That was the best brisket I've ever had was on that ranch multiple nights. Yeah, we were taken care of.
I think honestly, I think that's putting you on the radar for some folks that maybe weren't introduced to you before, or maybe they knew about you just doing sci-fi. So maybe that lead, that thing you're looking for, is definitely it's out there. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, this has introduced. This introduced me to a whole new audience of people that weren't familiar with me before, and just showed range from what I was doing before to, being in the 1800s. Opposite Sam Elliott, it's a character, it's going to help my career.
And where are you pulling your inspiration from? I love that when I talk with actors and creatives, where is the inspiration coming from? Is it music? Are you going to theater or just other movies and TV shows? Where do you kind of pull your inspiration from?
I do go to theater. I'm a member at Geffen over here in Westwood. They do some great shows over there. I love watching old movies. I still read a lot of comic books. I'm a comic book guy. And I love the craft, and I love just older projects that I still watch. I'm like that way with my music too, like 90s hip hop. I listen to a lot of 90s hip hop, and I still, when I'm working out, that gets me going.
90s hip hop. It was a different vibe back then. I know every generation says it, but 80s, 90s music, okay, I don't know anything now that people are going to go 20 years from now, like, oh, yeah, that was the 2020s.
Yeah, no. It was 80s and 90s were special. Like, that's why all these remakes are happening from those two decades, whether it's film, whether they're remixing songs and bringing hooks from the back in the day. Like, it was game-changing for everyone involved, and it's not just nostalgia. Like, it was some good television and film and music back in the 80s and 90s. Prince, back there, come on. The artists from the 80s and the 90s, it's unreal.
it was kind of everything, when you think about comedy. You had like Eddie Murphy doing stadium tours. It seems like, all these, so comedy was real big. You had these big personalities. Everything was vibrant, and you got Prince and Purple Rain and all this stuff. Is like, it is different, and I try to appreciate what's now, and I'm leaning in because my 16-year-old's really into country music. She's the only one. She's a city girl, but she I think she loves the fact she's got Texas DNA, even though we're in New Orleans. So I'm paying more attention to country. So I kicked on a little Tim McGraw for her to, gotta educate her properly. But yeah, they'll play a song and I'll hear a hook and I'll hear a sample. I'm like, no, that's
Hall and Oates. Yeah, exactly.
Now, is your wife is she anywhere is she in the industry, or is she just not even remotely even messing with it?
She does real estate. She's a real good real estate agent out here in Southern California, and it works for us. I dated an actress before, and it wasn't my thing, but I have buddies that are married to actors and actresses, and it works for them. Either it works or it doesn't. It didn't work out for me.
Yeah, there's no in between. It either need say no more. Yeah, been there. Now, how you got little people bouncing our how many kids you got?
I have a 17-year-old that's about to graduate, and the 2.5-year-old that you probably hear in the background now. He's back there cutting up. But yeah, that's a gap.
I kind of remember back those diaper days, those Disney Channel days. You kind of reminisce. Yeah. Now you got a little 2.0. You get to experience it again. But your 17-year-old, my son's about to graduate also. Is the entertainment thing anywhere on the radar?
I don't know yet. She's still figuring it out. At the Terminal List, we have our premiere coming up around mid-June. And I'm going to bring her to that to see if that sparks anything, and then she came out to set, and we had one of our directors was Christina, and she was amazing, and they hit it off. So maybe she might want to be a director. I don't know. She's around it when I'm around it. So if she gets influenced by it, I don't think she really knows what she wants to do yet, but yeah, they got plenty of time to figure it out, but we'll see.
You know what I tell my kids? You don't have to decide what you want to do right now. Just find what you're passionate about, what turns you on. Yeah. What things do you grab? That should inform what you end up doing. Not a fancy title on a business card,
Right. What gets you out of bed in the morning. Absolutely.
So you got a built-in babysitter right there a little bit.
A little bit. She wants to babysit everybody else's kids but her little brother. Like, she'll take care of the whole neighborhood, and we'll pay her, but she still wants to I don't know. It doesn't feel like she's babysitting if it's here on her couch. I don't get it.
Now, she already kind of committed to a college. She already kind of made her choice.
She has a few different options. I don't know where she's going yet. She has prom this Saturday, so that's all we've been hearing about. So that's gotta
be blowing your mind a little bit, huh? Like your baby's going to prom. I'm still getting my head around some stuff myself.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready for it, but you better be ready. Like, it's happening.
I tell you, I think you're lucky you've got kids with their head screwed on straight, but I'm like, I don't worry about my kids. I worry about other people's kids, influences or whatever have you. But, my daughter goes to school at Loyola, New Orleans, which is just 15 minutes from me. But of course, she's in college. I got to pretend like she's cross country. I'm not going to be rolling up and bugging her at college. But it's just.
I might be that dude that just rolls up on college like, hey, what's happening? I don't know.
Yeah, negotiate. I have that Life 360 thing on my phone. I'm like, it's like, just in case I say, hey, anything sideways, not good, I will be there. Like, man, send up that bat signal. I'm there, man.
In a heartbeat. Absolutely.
But it is weird. And you kind of realize, okay, she's 19. I'm like, okay, I trust her. She makes great decisions, but it is kind of weird because, we have that perspective that we remember them in diapers, it's just a weird kind of, I feel like I'm going through daddy puberty or something. I don't know.
I'm with you. The writing's on the wall. She's she's leaving not too long from now, and that, like, the birds fly in the coop. You're used to that bird being in the coop for as long as you can remember, and it's just different.
Going back to 1883, last question on that is, you had Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. No, they just had, I think all their kids are now off to college, or they got empty nests. Were you like picking the brain or anything? Or is there any discussion about, like, here's how you transition into a parent when your kids are somewhere else?
Yeah, they have 3 amazing daughters. Like, they did such a great job with them. And now that they're, empty nesters, they're both going back on tour again. So they're busy.
Really?
Yeah, they're both getting back at it. And Tim, even when we were shooting, once every 3 or 4 weeks, he flies Saturday night down to somewhere to do a show, come back Sunday and be ready to work by Monday, which is an insane schedule. And I had zero energy during that whole shoot. For him to muster up energy to go do that and be back Monday morning at like 5 a.m. in the gym with me was like, you're a superhero. Like there's no way.
So working out is a big thing for him. I guess that's how you maintain that energy, because you can't tour at anywhere around this age and have that much energy without having a real solid workout program and taking care of yourself, you know.
Yeah, and the work schedule we shot 6 days a week pretty much throughout. And these are long days, and you're outside. You're not in the studio with AC or heat when it's cold out. Like, you're weathering the storm and the elements. You're shooting in the rain. You're shooting in 10-degree weather. You're shooting in 115-degree weather with humidity in Texas. Like, we're doing it. So it's and then, you know, you're getting on a flight. You work all day on Saturday from being on set at 5 a.m. and flying to Fort Lauderdale to do a show. And you come back that night, and you're ready to go Monday morning. Was like, I don't know where he gets that energy.
I mean, I remember when he was king, and then you had Faith Hill, who was crossing over country and contemporary. I mean, you had the king and queen of country, basically. Yeah. You know, that's like a superpower.
One thing of advice: don't go behind them on karaoke night. You learn that fast. Karaoke night with the cast and crew, we're all singing. Don't go behind them. If you feel like you want to get up there and belt something out, make sure you do it early. Don't go behind Tim and Faith.
Well, you can say, okay, you're allowed to do karaoke with us, Tim, Faith, but you got to drink a lot first.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to make a little bit of a fool out of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, that had to be just a great experience. And like I said, it's just really, it is an introduction to what else. What kind of special things you're capable of, man. That was a great, I mean, just, again, you knocked it out of the park. I mean, it was a great cast, but you always resonated. And certainly the Terminal List is going to be your next project that's coming out, which is July, you say, right?
Yeah, July 1st on Amazon.
And it's an Amazon Prime, correct?
Yeah. It's going to be a big one. Really good cast, great writing. Yeah.
And Chris Pratt, one last thing. I forgot he was in some Western, and I heard in an interview somebody had said something about him that it was on a Western. He can bring out the gun and he walks on set knowing exactly what he's doing.
No, he's a professional's professional. It was fun being opposite Chris. And it's just, he's so warm and giving as a person and as an actor. But it's the same qualities that Sam has to me. Like, he just brings the tension down all around you, any anxiety that you might have from working with these, level of actors, that it just creates a fun environment and you could produce magic in that environment. And when Chris is, no matter what show you're on, the one on the show, the main person on that cast kind of dictates the energy of the rest of the cast and crew, the set. And
well, they put they put the whole show on their shoulders, more or less.
Yeah, they set the tone. And they set a great tone. So both those projects were really amazing to work on.
Now I know when you get your next lead, man, you're going to be doing that. You're going to be doing that, and you're going to be educating others on how it's done. I'm sure.
Yeah, I've had some good examples.
But before we get going, man, I appreciate your time, but I always got my 7 questions I like to kind of throw out. It's just a little fun, little insight, something I like to do. The first question: what is your favorite comfort food? That thing, if you see it on the craft food table, or maybe something you just need, it brings you right back home.
French fries.
Any particular brand, or just kind of any good French fries?
A good French fry. I think I'm a connoisseur of French fries, whether they're curly, shoestring, straight. I love my, no matter what diet I'm on, French fries has to be in that somehow, and we'll figure it out after that. But I'm a French fry guy.
Now, next question. If you could sit down, you're going to have coffee, spend a few hours talking story with 3 people, anybody, who would those 3 people be from your bucket list to sit down and have a conversation with?
All alive or dead or alive?
Either one.
Muhammad Ali, Tupac, and Muhammad Ali, Tupac, and Denzel Washington.
What's amazing is people forget how young he was when he passed. He was only wasn't he early 20s? He was only no more than 25, wasn't he?
24, 25, and he had just so much wisdom and so much.
I was about to say, you still see quotes from him showing up.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to the next question is, who was your celebrity crush when you were growing up?
Jamie Lee Curtis, Vanity, and probably Kelly LeBrock.
Vanity. God, I haven't heard that name in forever.
Yeah,
and Kelly
I'm
LeBrock.
thinking back to the movies I love. Yeah, Kelly LeBrock, Weird Science, Vanity, Jamie Lee Curtis, True Lies, Trading Places. Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was funny because you're a kid of the 80s also. You'll appreciate this. Total side note, but you mentioned Kelly LeBrock. And one of my syndicated shows was I focused on, the genre of music we like, retro. And every week I'm talking to somebody, actors or singers and stuff. And indirectly, I'd gotten this connection, and this little kind of back and forth texting thing or, messaging back and forth with Tawny Katane. I was like, she was like, oh, I was going to have her on the show. And I know she passed not too long ago. And I was sitting there going, man, 14-year-old me is so proud of me right now. Is that white snake dancing on the car's hood? I'm like, man, it's like 14, 15-year-old me is like high-fiving me,
Yeah, you're killing life right now. And that 14-year-old's looking at you like you're doing it.
Indeed, yeah. So now if you were going to be going, let's say you're going to go find you and the wife, kids, going to be camped out on a beautiful island. A year, though, you're going to be gone, no streaming, no nothing. You can bring a DVD and you can bring a CD. Any album, and any movie, what would you be bringing? You only can choose one of each. What would you bring to that island for a year?
It would probably be the Off the Wall album from Michael Jackson. And a film. If I could only bring one film, it would be, for me, not the family. They wouldn't want to see it, but it probably would be Unforgiven. Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman. Yeah.
It's so funny when this interview I'd heard with Sam Elliott, he said something. I think it was Mark Maron. He was on his show. He says, "So, has Clint Eastwood had you in one of his movies?" He's like, "No." He's like, "Come on, Clint." He's like, if you're gonna cast somebody to be in your Western, yeah, I mean, I'm talking the Mount Rushmore. I mean, Sam Elliott's going to be on it, right? It's about time the two of them got together.
Absolutely.
Now, if you were to define from the time you get up to the time you put your head on the pillow at night, the perfect day, what are the component parts of a perfect day for you?
Perfect day right now, after having a screaming toddler in my ear for the past 2.5 years. Get up, pray, meditate, go hit the gym. Straight from the gym, go straight to hot yoga. Come back home, have some food, watch a little Sports Center. Do something for a few hours, maybe read, maybe watch some old films. And at night, if there's a big fight on, like a UFC fight or a big boxing match, me and my wife meet up with some of my buddies, go to a sports bar, and just chill, unwind, and just watch a great fight. Like that's it. Right now, that seems like a great day.
It does. A lot of that's introspective me time, I've noticed.
Yeah.
So, you like to kind of. I need to get more into that. I've not done the yoga thing, and I know not getting up there in age, but kind of that. Getting up in the morning, you feel like little aches here and there, and everybody's like, "Man, do yoga. You'll feel 10 times better." Man. And I got to do that.
It's a game changer, and growing up being by yourself a lot, I enjoy being in my own head, in my own space, and hearing myself think.
I'm a member of that tribe as well, my friend, so I know it well. Now, I got last two questions for you now. If you were not just knocking it out of the park, doing what you're doing now on camera, what other vocation could you go, I could do that, or I'd love to do that?
I think something just helping out, youngsters, whether it's speaking at different high schools or just motivating or inspiring, or having a gym, a personal gym, and helping people meet their goals, feel good about themselves. I know what the gym did to me when I was growing up. It gave me, self-confidence. So just being the you want to be, and the gym can help you get there. The gym, to me, it sets the tone for everything that I do. So I would probably have a gym somewhere and help other people see what I see.
Now you're coming back around to that thing I said before. Now you're making me go, God, I got to get back in the gym and work out. And I had a car accident a number of years, not really bad, but enough where I had to kind of really take a break.
Yeah.
And you know what? All gains get lost, and you just kind of fall out of the routine, and it's like restarting again is always the task. So you're inspiring me, man. Last question. If you could jump into a DeLorean, you're cruising back in time. You got a couple minutes with 16-year-old you. What is the advice and guidance that's going to get you on a better track, or just make the road a little bit more smooth and enjoyable? What would that piece of advice be?
Keep your humility, lose the ego, and double your work ethic.
That's spot on, man. And I so appreciate it. Again, for you being generous with your time, I can't thank you enough, most certainly. And again, July, that's when we're going to be seeing you on the terminal list. Of course, you and Chris Pratt. LaMonica, thank you so much, again, for being generous with your time. And definitely looking forward to July, my friend, for the release of Terminal List.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate your time as well.
All right, that was cool. Really enjoyed this chat. I've admired LaMonica Garrett's work for a really long time, and I mean, just watching him in 1883, I mean, he just knocked it out of the park. And to have him on, just kind of have that great vibe and just energy, man. It's no doubt that he's got the great career he's had so far and where he's going. And don't forget, the Terminal List, I believe it's July 1st, I believe is the release date on Amazon Prime. And he'll be co-starring with Chris Pratt. He's a guy to keep your eye on. LaMonica Garrett, really, really enjoyed this chat. Really appreciate you being here. I mean, without a doubt, I do appreciate the messages I've received. And just check it in and let me know you like the show. Great conversations coming up. And glad to have you here. Don't forget to subscribe, like the show, leave a review if you will. Also, anything going on Story and Craft, just go to storyandcraftpod.com. That's how you shoot me a message if you want to check me out on social media. Anything, really. Just head to the website. It is all there. All right, that's it for this episode. Look forward to connecting with you on the next episode right here on Story and Craft.
That's it for this episode of Story and Craft. Join Mark next week for more conversation right here on Story and Craft. Story and Craft is a presentation of Mark Preston Productions, LLC. Executive producer is Mark Preston. Associate producer is Zachary Holden. Please rate and review Story and Craft on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. You can subscribe to show updates and stay in the know. Just head to storyandcraftpod.com and sign up for the newsletter. I'm Emma Dillon. See you next time, and remember, keep telling your story.